Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I want to show you as many tips and tricks as I can about the Steam Deck, starting with how you can adjust your VRAM. In order to adjust your VRAM, you're going to want to turn off your Steam Deck. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to press the Steam button and you're going to come down to power. Once you've hit power, you're going to shut down. And while that's shutting down, I'm going to explain exactly what we're doing. The reason that we're doing this is because some games require more power to the GPU than they do the CPU. The Steam Deck has what's called an APU, which means it shares RAM between the CPU and the GPU. Some games require more power to the GPU and more RAM to the GPU, and you have the ability to change that if you want. So now that we've got our Steam Deck shut off, we're going to hold down the volume up button and we're going to press the power button on our Steam Deck. You can see that the light turned on, and now we can see that we've got a boot logo. Once that boots up, we want to come over here to the setup utility. Once that goes into this window, you're going to come down to advanced, and then you're going to look for UMA frame buffer size. Currently, it's set to 1 gig by default. You have the ability to change it to 256 megabytes, 512, 1 gigabyte, 2 gigabytes, or 4 gigabytes. Now, you should probably experiment and see which setting works best for the games that you're playing. Once you've decided on it, you can set it and leave it where it is, but if you ever change your mind, you can always come back over here on the left-hand side, come down to Restore Defaults, so that you can undo any changes that you're not happy with. Once you are happy with the changes that you've made, you're going to go ahead and hit Exit Saving Changes. It's going to say, "Are you sure?" And you're going to say, "Absolutely, I'm sure." You hit the button, and now you've got your VRAM set to whatever it is that you decided to set it at. Tip number 2, you might want to install Cryo Utilities. Cryo Utilities is a set of scripts and utilities written by Kyle, aka CryoByte33. He is a friend of the show and he used to be a regular member on the NerdNest podcast, so I do trust this utility. If you want to install it, I'm going to leave a link to his webpage down below, as well as a link to a full tutorial that Kyle made, all down in that description down below that like button. So make sure that you check that out. Let's talk about charging your Steam Deck. The Steam Deck comes with its own charger, which is awesome. The LCD deck came with a slightly shorter cord, and the OLED Steam Deck came with a longer cord. And it's wonderful that they extended the length of that cord on the Steam Deck, but I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. What are you doing back there? I'm looking for a charger. I'm trying to do a video. Sorry. It's downstairs. Well, I guess since he brought it up, I should talk about the sponsor of the video, Ugreen. We have a lot of tech here in the NerdNest, and they all come with their own power bricks, like I was just mentioning for the Steam Deck. But all of those power bricks are kind of terrible. They only charge one thing at a time. They don't have detachable cords, so if there's something wrong with the cord, you gotta buy a whole new thing. Their prongs don't fold down, so you gotta worry about them scratching something in your desk, or in your bag, I mean. Overall, they're massive and they're not good. That's why I love Ugreen chargers. Everything I hate about the other chargers doesn't exist with Ugreen. This is the Nexode X 160 watt charger from Ugreen with 3 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port. This charger provides 160 watts of total output. You can fast charge your laptop, phone, and tablet all at the same time. It's small, it's light, it's powerful. In fact, it's 21% smaller than the original 140 watt charger. I often use it to charge my MacBook, which can go from 0 to 50% in just 27 minutes. Whenever my family goes on trips, we always bring Ugreen chargers with us in order to keep our stuff topped off. So if you want to keep your tech topped off the fast and easy way, then click on the link in the description down below. And a huge thank you to Ugreen for sponsoring this video. Since we're talking about traveling with your Steam Deck, I figure I should probably bring up cases, and there's quite a few different options for travel cases. It's awesome that the Steam Deck comes with a case, but honestly, I find that case to be just a little bit bulky. So let's say that you are looking for something that's a little more form-fitting. I would suggest this case from TomTalk, and as with all of the stuff in this video, there will be links in the description down below. This case is really nice. It fits the Steam Deck pretty well. It's fairly thin. It comes with something that can cover up the screen, which I really like, and it's got little cutouts for your thumbsticks, which is great. I find this to be really fantastic. I feel like it's going to protect the Steam Deck pretty well, and it's very, very thin. Now, if you want something that's a little more rugged, I would suggest the Project Kill Switch case from Dbrand. This is really cool, although Dbrand did get into some hot water when they first released this because the kickstand that they had on the back was magnetically attached, but they went back to the drawing board after they made that mistake, and they made it so that it's no longer magnetically attached. It attaches by this twisting mechanism. One cool thing about the kickstand is it has a spot right here and here in order for you to put SD cards in there. So if you have extra SD cards that you want to bring with you, you have a safe place to store them. And they even have little switches that you can push to release them once they're locked in. Let me go ahead and put my kickstand back on, and we'll flip over to the other side. Here you can see I've taken the cover off of my Dbrand case, and it's got a little Dbrand logo there. They did a great job designing this. It's absolutely top-notch quality. I personally don't use it only because I prefer a naked Steam Deck. I prefer not to have a case when I'm playing. That being said, for about 6 months, this was on my Steam Deck, and I just never put it on my OLED Steam Deck once I got the OLED one. The cover is fantastic because it covers the triggers up here, so you don't have to worry about your triggers getting damaged. You don't have to worry about your joysticks getting damaged. Overall, I think the Dbrand did a great job with this case. Now, if you're throwing your Steam Deck into a backpack, I suggest one of those other cases. But if you are throwing your Steam Deck not in a backpack, but you still want to take your Steam Deck with you, then I have this case from TomTalk. This is really fantastic. When I go places and I'm not bringing my Steam Deck, I often use this as a camera bag, but it was made with the Steam Deck in mind. So let's take a look at it right here. There's lots and lots of room in here. In fact, there's enough room in here that you can fit your Steam Deck, which I'll put in right now. Let me turn the screen off. There we go. You can fit your Steam Deck in here, and there is still room in here for an entire Nintendo Switch plus a battery pack. So this is a really great Steam Deck case if you want to just carry just your electronics in a separate bag. I highly recommend this. That being said, if you are somebody who prefers to have things just be a little bit more slim, then this case is the one that I would recommend. Let's talk shortcuts. Anytime that you are forgetting what shortcuts you have, if you hold down the quick access menu button, it will bring those up. It will also work if you're holding down the Steam button, which is great. First off, let's say that you want to kill a game that is not running properly. Usually I'll hit the Steam button and I'll come over here and I'll go down to exit game. But sometimes a game is just hanging up and it can't figure out what it's supposed to do next. In which case you're going to hold down Steam and press B, and that will actually kill the game that is running. We'll see if that works. There we go, the game just died on me. If you want to take a screenshot, if you hold down the Steam button and then press R1, it's going to take a screenshot. I'm not sure why Valve did it this way, but in order to share that screenshot, there's a whole bunch of different steps that you're going to take. So I'm going to go into my Steam menu. I'm going to come down here to Media, and you can see the screenshot that I just took. So if I come down here and I press the A button, it's going to show me my whole screenshot. And then if I press the Start button, I have my options. I'm going to go ahead and hit Upload. It's going to ask me what I need to do to upload it. So I'm going to say that I want it to be public, and I'm going to hit Confirm. And now it says that I've uploaded my screenshot. I'm going to go ahead and hit back. And if I go back into my media, I should be able to see my screenshots right there. You also have the ability to go into there and hit share, and you have a few different ways to share. One of them I did not know about until I was getting ready to make this video, and that is to share it via a QR code, which is really strange. So if I want to share that screenshot, I can click that button. It's going to bring up a QR code, and I can just grab my phone and bring up my QR code scanner. And you can see right there, and then there's a share button. I can click on that share sheet, and I can share that screenshot with whatever app that I want without having to actually do anything on my Steam Deck, which is a really, really handy way to share your screenshot. Let's say that you are going to be spending some extra time in desktop mode. I'm gonna highly recommend that you get yourself a mouse and keyboard. If you're only going to be in desktop mode for a short time, I recommend that you pick up one of these. I just got this the other day. It is called the Fossmann Bluetooth mini keyboard. I'll leave a link in the description down below. This is really handy because, number one, it's got mouse buttons here and here. You've got a trackpad. You also have mouse buttons right here. You can do page up and page down for scrolling, and you have access to a physical keyboard. It just makes things so much easier. And this has a permanent spot next to me on my couch over there, so that when I do dock my Steam Deck, I still have access to all of this stuff if I need it. That being said, if I'm sitting at a desktop and actually using the Steam Deck, you know, in desktop mode for any length of time, then I highly suggest you connect to a real keyboard and mouse. And my favorite keyboard right now is the Keychron Q1HE, which is this monster right here. And I call it a monster because it is so heavy. It has a RGB backlighting, although I have that turned off right now. I love the color scheme that they have going on. You can connect it either via Bluetooth. Oh, you can't see this because of my camera is in locked down focus, so we'll try it like that. You can connect it via Bluetooth, via cable, or via 2.4 gigahertz dongle. You can set it to Windows or Mac, and it's charged via USB-C. Another thing that I like about it is it connects to 3 different Bluetooth systems whenever you want. So my Windows PC is usually Bluetooth 1. My Steam Deck or some other device that I need to use it with is usually Bluetooth 2. And then I usually connect my Mac via Bluetooth 3. And then I reserve the 2.4 gigahertz wireless dongle for in case one of those doesn't work for whatever reason, because you know, Bluetooth can be fairly finicky. It also has a little volume dial right here, which you can turn up and down, and I think I just turned on my Windows PC by accident. But overall, this thing is fantastic, and it is heavy as hell. It's very, very heavy. You probably noticed that right down here, I've got buttons that are corresponding to the Mac. It also comes with Windows buttons so that you can swap those out if you want. But if you're going to be on your Steam Deck using desktop mode for any length of time, then that's my recommendation, is to get a real keyboard like this one. I'll leave a link in the description down below. Then you've got your mouse. This is the Logitech MX Master 3. I use it all the time. Not a gaming mouse, but it has these 2 scroll wheels, which I absolutely love. All right. Moving on from keyboard and mouse, let me just put this thing back over here. And since we're in desktop mode already, let's talk about EmuDeck. EmuDeck is basically a set of scripts that will automatically set up your Steam Deck for emulation. That means playing all of your old games. It's super easy to do. Honestly, it could not be easier. All you have to do is open up your browser. Once that opens up, you're going to bring up your keyboard, Steam X, just like I told you before. I'm going to tap in here, and I'm going to type in EmuDeck. I'm going to hit enter, and I'll hide my keyboard. And it says Emulation Made Easy on SteamOS. It could not be easier. I have a tutorial about how to do it, but honestly, you don't need the tutorial. It's that easy. So simply download it, run it, follow the directions, put your ROMs in the right place, and you are all set. When the Steam Deck first came out, I would say that Steam Input was a step down from where it had used to be. But over time, Valve has put in the work and really done a lot to improve Steam Input. And honestly, I think this next tip, there's going to be a lot of people who've never seen this before because it's something that's very, very easy to miss. So let's say that I'm assigning buttons for a game like Rogue Legacy 2. I'm going to go ahead and jump into Rogue Legacy 2. I'm going to jump into my inputs. I'm going to edit my layout. And this is very cool because here I have, I'm going to set a button, but guess what? You don't even have to go into that menu. You can just push the start button and it tells the system to listen. What do you want that button to do? Now, I probably wouldn't do it with the B button, but I might come down here to the back grips Like right here, I have my R4 is the left bumper, but maybe I want my L4 to be the left bumper. All I have to do is hit listen, and then I'm gonna hit the button that I want it to do. Bam, left bumper. That's so much better than the way it used to be. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that command. What you used to have to do is you would come up here, and then you would go into this menu, and you would say, oh, I want it to be left bumper. Or you would go into that menu, and then you would go over to the keyboard, and you would say, oh, I want that to be the F button. Since we're talking about Steam Input, let me show you another trick you can do with Steam Input, and that's turbo buttons. I'm lazy. Why would I want to push a button over and over and over when I could just hold that button down instead? That's where extra commands comes into play in Steam Input. Here you can see I'm playing Rogue Legacy 2. I'm going to hit the Steam button. I'm going to come down here to my controller settings, and I'm going to go into my settings, edit layout, and my attack button. Well, actually, hold on, that's wrong. There we go. My attack button is currently X. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the gear icon, and I'm going to switch this over. I'm going to add an extra command, and that extra command is going to be a gamepad command, and it's going to be X. Bam, now I have X, but it's also X. Depending on what I'm doing here, that doesn't make any sense. Well, I'm gonna come down here to my extra command, and I'm going to hit the gear icon, and I'm gonna change it from a regular press to a long press. And then, now that it's under long pressed, I'm gonna go into settings, and I'm going to hit hold to repeat turbo. So now, if I hit start, or not start, but Steam, you can see it if I press X, I attack. But if I hold X, it spams it for me. Now, what you might not be able to, what you absolutely can't tell is when I'm spamming this, I have a haptic feedback that is telling me, bam, 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 I'm spamming this button for you. And I can feel every time that the button gets pushed. If you are running into issues where it's going too fast for you, you can hit Steam, and you can come down here to that turbo button, and you go into the gear icon and settings, and you can do the repeat rate, and I can slow down the repeat rate. So I'm gonna go ahead and slow down the repeat rate. I'm gonna hit done, I'm gonna hit Steam, I'm gonna test it. All right, it's happening much slower, and so maybe that's what I'm trying to dial in for this particular game. So now I can either hit my button, or I can hold it down and have it attack that way. But you're not limited to just turbo buttons. You can also go in here, and I can set another extra command, add extra command, and I'm gonna set that to be another gamepad button. Maybe I'll have it be A, and if I go over here to my gear, I'm gonna change it from a regular press to a double press. So now, if I press X, it's going to attack. If I hold X, it's going to spam attack, and if I double tap X, it's going to press A for me. This isn't something that I would do in this game, but it's an easy game to show off exactly what's happening when I do those different moves. That's extra commands. Now let's take a look at sub commands. Extra commands allow you to attach a bunch of different commands to one button. Extra commands allow you to press two buttons at the same time. This comes in really handy when you are doing a keyboard command. So let me go into my controller settings and edit layout. And I'm gonna come down here. Let me get rid of these. By the way, a lot of people will think that you need to go into the gear icon and then come down to settings and then delete the command. You don't have to do that. Look right here, remove command just by pressing X. So I'm gonna press X, reset activation, reset, delete extra command, gone. So much easier cleaning up your inputs when you are just using that instead of going through a bunch of menus. I'm gonna do that for the other one because I don't really need all those extra ones. But let's say that I want double tapping Y button to press shift space. It's not something that I think I would ever do in Rogue Legacy, but I'm gonna show you how to do that. Basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my Y button. I'm going to add an extra command. I'm going to come down here to keyboard, and I'm going to press space. So now, when I press my Y button, it's going to press the space key, but I don't actually want that. I want it to be a double tap. So I'm gonna switch that from a regular press to a double tap, and that's gonna push my space key, but that still did not actually make the shift space. So now, under this command, I'm going to go to my gear icon, and I'm going to add a sub command. And that sub command is going to be another button that gets pushed at the same time that I push that space button, in this case, shift. So now you can see that it's kind of nested with the sub command underneath my extra command. So what happens now is if I press the Y button, I get the Y button. But if I double press the Y button, I get shift space. Now in this particular game, it's not gonna actually do anything because I don't think shift space does anything in Rogue Legacy, but now you know how to set up subcommand and extra commands. And if you want more details on subcommands and extra commands, I have an entire tutorial about it, which I will link in the description down below that like button. Vampire Survivors is one of my favorite recent games that have come out, and it plays fantastically well on the Steam Deck, but when you're playing that game, sometimes you're, moving around and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm gonna stop and take a drink. And you reach over to get your drink with your left hand, you gotta take your thumb off the stick, but you just wanna keep playing. What if you wanna use the right stick to control instead? Well, that's super easy. Go into the Steam menu, go into your controller settings, go to Edit Layout, come down here to Joysticks, and then go down here to your right joystick. And if you click on this little gear icon, you can then say output the right joystick, and I'm going to switch that to the left joystick. And now my right joystick does the same thing that my left joystick does. So now when I'm playing Vampire Survivors, I can switch back and forth between which hand I'm using while I'm playing the game. Maybe it's useless, but I think it's cool. Now, many of you have probably heard me talk about Flickstick before, but if you haven't, I'll explain what it is in just a second. For those of you that have heard me talk about Flickstick before, I don't think you're going to want to skip this, because for every single game that you play, if you're using Flickstick, you need to calibrate each game specifically for Flickstick based on the game. And there's a new way to do that, which is way easier than it's ever been before. Let me show you how it is. But first, I want to show everybody who doesn't know what Flickstick is, what it is. So here I'm playing Doom 2 on my Steam Deck, and you can see that the right joystick, it acts like a regular right joystick. If I push to the left, my character looks to the left, and so on. But what I want to do here is I'm just going to move forward so I can point directly at that pillar at the end of the hallway down there. And now what I want to do is I'm going to hit Steam, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to turn on Flickstick, and then I'm going to hit Steam again. So how does Flickstick work? Well, instead of pushing left in order to look left, this snaps to the left. It makes it much faster to snap. So I'm looking directly to the left, now I'm looking directly to the right. Basically, I can show it to you the best way this way, is I can turn this around, and to look behind me, it's going to go all the way around, which seems kind of crazy, but that's because it is not currently calibrated properly. Let me just make sure I'm looking right in the middle, dead center in that pillar. So if I want to calibrate this properly, I'm going to go into the Steam menu, and I cannot believe it took them this long to do it because this is so brilliant. I wish that I had thought of it myself. I'm going to temporarily assign the Y button. I'm going to go up here to camera, and I'm going to say turn camera 360 degrees. And it says here, this action will spin the camera by 360 degrees horizontally by sending out 360 degrees worth of mouse pixels over the duration of the turn. The dots per 360 setting determines how many pixels that is. So this action must be used in conjunction with the gyro to mouse or flickstick modes, okay? So now that I've got that set up, I'm gonna come down here to confirm, and then I'm gonna go back to my joysticks, and flickstick is currently set to turn 6,545 pixels is one 360 degree turn, which is probably way too many. I'm gonna close this, I'm gonna press Y, and I did not end up facing the same direction. Well, your goal is to face the same direction when you're done. So I think that I'm going way too much, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit Steam, and I'm going to reduce this, 2545 instead. Now, and close that. I'm going to press Y. Okay, that turned me all the way around, but it didn't turn me around enough. So instead of I went too far down, now I'm going to increase it. First, I got to get back right in the middle of that pillar there. I hit Steam, and I'm going to increase this. There we go. By the way, if you didn't know, you can tap on this, and you can just type in your value. Currently, it's set to 2545. I'll try 3000. Done. I'm going to close this, press Y. That's too much. Steam, we're going to go 2600. Done. Look back at the middle of the pillar, press Y. Not enough. So I got to increase a little bit. So maybe, okay, so I can't increase it that way. So I'm going to go 2700. Done. Get lined up. Press Y. A little bit higher, maybe 2750. Joysticks, flick stick. I'm going to fast forward through this while I do it so that you can see basically the process, but I'm going to go real fast. Once you think you've got it nailed in, here's what you're going to do. You're going to keep that set to 360-degree spin, and you're just going to push it a bunch of times. And you should end up pretty much in the same place every single time. Once you've got it calibrated properly, you can go back into your settings, hop back out to buttons, and set this back to your Y button. And now when you play your game, this is really cool. If I want to look right, I'm going to just flick to the right. I'm going to look 90 degrees to the right, 90 degrees to the left, 90 degrees to the left, looking behind me. If I want to look behind me completely, flip it back down. It's going to take me right back to where I was facing. If you use flick stick in combination with gyro, you can use the right stick for fast movements like this, and then you can really dial in exactly what you're trying to shoot at with the gyro, which I don't have set up because it's doomed to. Why bother? Speaking of the trackpads, you also have the ability to add virtual menus to the trackpads, which are incredibly useful for games that have a lot of different keyboard commands. In order to do that, I'm going to press the Steam button, and then I'm going to go into my controller settings, and once I'm in controller settings, edit layout, and I'm going to come all the way down here to virtual menus. Under virtual menu, I'm going to add virtual menu, and I'm going to go ahead and name my virtual menu subscribe, and I'm going to hit confirm. And now I'm going to have a couple of different options for my virtual menus. I can choose a radial menu, a touch menu, or a hotbar menu. The hotbar menu I have not found a use for. If you know what hotbar menus are useful for, let me know in the comment section down below that like button. But radial menus, I feel like they're best to be put on a joystick so that you can flick the joystick, it'll pop up a menu and you can choose from that. I'll show you that in a little bit. But a touch menu is what we're actually setting up. So I'm going to press touch menu. And now over here, I'm going to edit my touch menu and I'm going to start adding commands. So in Manor Lords, which is the game that I'm playing right now, the C button is the construction button. I'm going to add another virtual menu. I'm going to go up to my keyboard. And the M button is another button that I may need to hit. And we'll do one more, and I think the R button is another button that I might be using in Manor Lords. I can't remember off the top of my head, but here you can see I've got a bunch, I've now got my menu, and you can see over here on the left-hand side what that menu is going to look like. So let me hit the Steam button, and if I touch the, oh, you know what? I'd never assigned it to a trackpad, so that's a mistake I made. Now, the next thing that I need to do is I gotta go down to a trackpad, and I'm going to send that's my right trackpad. I'm going to set my left trackpad to a virtual menu, which is labeled or called subscribe. So I'm going to click on that. And now when I'm in my game, if I touch that, it's going to bring up my menu and I have the option to press C, press M, or press R. Now, currently I have it set to where I hold it, it disappears, and it doesn't actually send that input until I click in, and then it brings up my construction menu. If I hit the R button, it's going to bring up a different menu, and if I hit the M button, it's going to bring up my map. I close my map. Now I'm going to hit the Steam button again, and I'm going to go into my virtual menus. I'm going to look at my subscribe menu, and I want to change how that works. So if I go into my gear icon, I can say that that is going to be release press. Basically what that means is it's going to send that input when I release for the C key, but only for the C key. So if I want to bring up the C key, I mouse over it and I let go, and it brings it up. If I push the M key, I mouse over it, I push down, it sends, push down again, it goes away. The C key, I push down, nothing happens until I release, and then it brings it up. A few other options that you get to do with the touch menu is I can assign a graphic for the touch menu. If I click on that, I get to pick a symbol, whatever symbol I want. I'll just pick a random symbol. I can change the foreground color and the background color. I'll set that to green with a light blue background because that couldn't be more hideous. And I'm going to hit done. And now you can see that that's the icon that's going to be sent for the C key. So if I hit Steam, I bring it up, and now it's got an icon instead of the C button, and you can see right above that it says C. Now I don't want it to say C, I want it to tell me what it actually does. So I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna hit the gear button, and I'm gonna come down to rename command, and I'm going to type in construct. So now, when I hit this, it says construct and tells me what button it is. So you can do a million things with that. One of the coolest things about PC gaming and the Steam Deck is the non-stop sales. You're gonna save so much money when you are playing games on your Steam Deck because we constantly have deals and sales and awesome websites like Humble Bundle in order to get games really, really cheap. Just yesterday, I got Yakuza Like a Dragon and Hi-Fi Rush for $12, plus I think it was like 5 other games with this month's Humble Choice. There is a link in the description down below. It is an affiliate link, just so that we're being completely transparent, but I'm here to tell you, Humble Bundle's fantastic and Steam sales are fantastic, and that is one of the things about the Steam Deck that is so good, is you get so many games really cheap. Now, I've said a million times that gyro is absolutely fantastic, but sometimes you need to calibrate gyro because there might be something off with it. For instance, here I want to show you what it's like when gyro is not properly calibrated. I'm running Entropy Center here, and I've got gyro turned on, and as soon as I touch that, you can see that it starts moving. That's because my gyro is not calibrated properly. So I'm going to kill the game. I'll try that again. I'm going to kill that game, and then I'm going to press the Steam button. I'm going to come down to settings, and under settings, I'm going to come all the way down to controller, and down here, I'm going to go to calibration and advanced settings. I'm going to click open. And now I'm going to go to gyro calibration. You can see that they're all off by just a little bit. So it says down here, pitch, yaw, and roll speeds should be very close to 0 when the controller is on a stationary surface. If any bias to one direction, controls will drift in game. Click calibrate to correct for that drift. So all of these sliders should be fairly close to 0. And if they're not, what you want to do is you want to press this calibrate button right down here. It's going to tell you to post it on a stable control surface and then just leave it alone. And now that the calibration's done, if I load back into Entropy Center, we should be able to see if I've fixed my drift. So here I've got my Steam Deck on a perfectly level surface, and I'm going to touch the activator. and you can see it is no longer drifting. So it looks like we fixed our issue. One thing that drives me crazy is when I'm playing a game and I constantly get notifications. I don't mind getting notifications if someone's sending me a message, but getting notifications when somebody is just playing a game is not something that I've ever been interested in. So if you press the Steam button over on the left-hand side of the screen, you can come all the way down to Settings, and under Settings, you can come down to your notifications, and you can set your notifications to never. You can customize it exactly how you want, whether or not it's going to play a sound or show a toast. I'm going to set it to anytime, and then I'm going to say when a friend joins a game, don't show a toast. I don't need to know when that happens. When I receive a chat message, yes, show something, send a sound. When I receive a chat room notification, do those things. But when a friend comes online or starts playing a game, I don't need to be notified of that stuff unless they actually want to get a hold of me. Now that I've got that set, let's actually take a look at the quick access menu over here on the right-hand side. That's the 3 dots, or the ellipses menu, or as I like to sometimes call it, the dead snowman, because he's laying on his side. I'm gonna hit that button and it's going to bring up my notifications, which are all the way up here at the top. It's got my friends list right there. And right here is my performance overlay. The performance overlay that I like is performance overlay level 2. And it's got some really good information here. Like, as you can see, I've got my frames per second, currently sitting around 40. I've got my frame time, so I can see if it's jumping up or down really quickly. I can see how much the GPU, or I'm sorry, the CPU is being used, and how much the GPU is being used, how much RAM is being used, how much VRAM I'm currently using, my battery life, how many watts that I'm currently using. Currently I'm using 8.6 watts on here, and I'll show you how you can change that later, and what time it is. Now, speaking of later, later is now. So let's actually adjust how many watts are being used. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to set a TDP limit. You can see that my TDP limit is currently sitting at 5 watts. Why is it 5 watts? Well, here's the reason why. The last time I played a game, it was a game that didn't require a lot of power. So I set the Steam Deck to just use 5 watts of power, which is great because that means the battery is going to last a really long time. However, what I forgot to do is set a per game performance profile. So if I come up here to per game profile, I want to set that to on, and now it's just going to set whatever settings that I change here in the quick access menu. It's only going to set that for when I'm playing Entropy Center. And you can see as soon as I hit that, it loaded in my Entropy Center profile, and my frames per second jumped up to 60, and my frame time graph flattened out and got really, really nice and flat. The reason for that is because if you come down here, you can see that my TDP limit is set to off. Currently, I have it set to on, and now it's set to off. Now, setting it to on and leaving it at 15 watts does absolutely nothing, but if I lower how many watts I'm using, and I close this, you should see some issues in the frame time, although I guess I didn't lower it quite enough, so I'm going to lower it all the way down to 3 watts. And now you can see, oh man, that is real bad. So let's go ahead and increase that TDP limit. I'm going to increase it to 6 watts, and now I'm up to almost 60 frames per second. So you get to control how many watts are being used. Now that might actually confuse you, because if you look, here I've got it set to using 6 watts, but it says it's using 9.5 watts at this point. Well, that's because it doesn't take into account how many watts the screen is using or a couple of other things. This is just showing how much wattage is available for your games. So by adjusting your TDP limit, you can adjust what kind of performance you're getting, and you can increase your battery life quite a bit. Now, something else that is designed to increase your battery life is half rate shading. I've never really had good experience turning that on, so I almost never turn it on for any reason. Allowing tearing is something that you might want to do if you want to decrease your input lag. So if I want to increase allow tearing, that's going to allow the game to have kind of a mismatch between the frame and the refresh, and it's going to cause like a line to go through the screen. But here's the thing, because the Steam Deck is a portrait screen turned sideways instead of a landscape screen, the tearing is vertical, and it's a little bit less noticeable than when the tearing goes side to side. So if you're ever experiencing some bad input lag, you can experiment with allowing tearing to be turned on. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my TDP limit as well. And let's move down to scaling mode down here. Another way that you can customize the performance of the games that you're playing is using scaling. You can run your games at a lower resolution and then use upscaling in order to run those, to make those games look like they're running at a higher resolution. And you can get to those options here in the performance tab down here under scaling mode. You got your integer, fit, stretch, and fill, and then your scaling filter, which is linear, pixel, FSR, or NIS. I suggest that on a game-by-game basis, you test those out and see which ones work best for you. Another thing that's really cool that Valve did is they allow us to adjust our refresh rate and frames per second of each game individually. Here you can see that it's running at 90 frames per second and 90 hertz. That's the refresh rate of the screen is the 90 hertz, and the frame rate of the game is the FPS. And I'm going to adjust this down to 30 frames per second. And it's going to go black for a second and then turn back on. Or maybe it won't because I didn't change the refresh rate of the screen. So here, this is showing that I am going to be getting 30 frames every single second. And my screen is refreshing at 90 hertz. That means that I will see every one of those 30 frames 3 times, because 3 times 3 is 90. If I lower this down to 40 frames per second, or I guess raise it to 40 frames per second, my screen will turn black for a second. And now you can see that it's at 80 hertz, and you're probably seeing all kinds of flickering because of a mismatch between the refresh rate of the screen and the camera that you're looking at right now. This is going to allow me to play my game at 40 frames per second, and I will see every frame twice. That means that those two are in match, and it's going to feel really, really smooth when I play. I'm going to go ahead and increase this back up to 90 hertz. And you can see that a lot of that flickering goes away. Although you can still kind of see this banding going across. I can't see that in real life. I only see it on my monitor that I'm looking at my screen on. When the Steam Deck shipped, it shipped without a way for you to lock your Steam Deck, which is one of the things that I said was a huge mistake that Valve had made, but they fixed it almost instantaneously. If you want to lock your Steam Deck, you go to the Steam, you come down to your settings, you're going to go down to security, and over here you're going to use a lock screen, and you can turn on that lock screen and then pick a pin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to repeat that pin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now I'm going to sleep the Steam Deck, and I'm going to turn it back on. And when it comes back up, it's going to ask me for my pin, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there you have it. If you want to turn it off, you're going to have to put your pin in again. And now I've turned it off. You can set it to do that on sleep and wake up before before showing the login screen, or when switching into desktop mode. Just a helpful hint. Let's talk about SD cards. Sometimes you don't want to open up your Steam Deck in order to adjust storage, which is why it's awesome that Valve included an SD card reader in the Steam Deck. And when you are purchasing an SD card, it's important to note that the maximum read and write speeds of anything using the SD card on the Steam Deck is going to be 104 megabytes per second. Now, you can obviously buy faster, more expensive cards than that, but they're not going to actually be faster. And pretty much all testing has shown that whether or not you're running a game off the SD card or off of the internal storage, it really doesn't matter outside of load time. So my recommendation is that when you're spending money on an SD card for the Steam Deck, try and find one that has a maximum throughput that's at least 104 megabytes per second, and then try and stick to about that speed and increase capacity as much as you can afford. I'll leave a link to a bunch of different SD cards down below so that you can pick up ones that I know work well with the Steam Deck. And since we're talking about SD cards, let's talk about where do you install your games and how do you make that decision? Well, for me, generally what I do are the games that I'm playing the most often right now, they go on the SSD just because it's faster, and the games that I only play from time to time end up on the SD card. So sometimes I'm not paying close enough attention when I'm installing a game and I install it on the wrong drive. How do you move it from one drive to another? It's actually really easy. Come to the Steam button, head down to Settings. Under Settings, you're going to scroll down until you see Storage, which is right here. And here you can see all of the games that are installed on my internal drive and all of the games that are installed on my SD card. And if I've got a game that I installed on, we'll say my SD card, that I want to move over to my SSD, that's actually really easy to do. So for instance, I want to move Chrono Trigger over. I can either go uninstall or move content. I'm going to hit move content. It's going to ask me, do you want to move it to your internal drive, since that's the only other option? And I say yes, move. And it's going to take a minute to move the content over, but then when it's done, my game will be on the SSD instead of on the SD card, which I think is awesome that you can do that without uninstalling and reinstalling. By the way, I did say earlier I was going to show you about my keyboards. If you press the Steam button on your Steam Deck and you come down here to the Settings tab, and then go down until you see Keyboard, you can see that you have a bunch of different keyboards over here. You can visit the point shop. When you bought your Steam Deck, you got a lot of points, and you can spend those points on different customized keyboards if you want. It doesn't actually cost you anything. I bought a bunch of them from the point shop, and you can click on this and change it to whatever you want. This one right here, it came with the more expensive version of the LCD deck. The OLED one, which is right here, whereas an OLED, that's this one that looks like kind of red and looks really, really awesome. But you have a bunch of other options like Night Shift, which looks like that. And if you go into the point shop, you've got a bunch of different keyboards that you can buy. Like that's 5,000 points, and I've got 201,000 points right now. So I can buy one of these quite easily. I already have Totally Tubular, so I will buy this green one. It's called Digital. If I click on that, I'm going to say, yes, I want it. 5,000 points. Equip now. And now I have equipped that keyboard, and that actually looks really cool on there. There's other things that are also available on the point shop that you can find under the customization menu right here. So I'm going to head down to customization, and you can see I can shuffle my startup movie. I can use my startup movie as a wake movie. And currently my startup movie is the Steam Deck default. But if I want, I can switch to another one. So I just installed the Paddles movie from the point shop, and I'm going to set that as my current one. And I'm going to set that as a wake movie. And I'm going to turn off my Steam Deck, and now when I wake it up, it's going to have that little animation instead of the default animation, which is really cool. I love that. Now, one last thing that I want to say is if there's a tip that I missed that you think is really, really important, because I obviously couldn't hit them all in this video, let me know in the comment section down below that like button, and I will be sure to include it in a future tips and tricks video. From the NerdNest, I'm Bill. Stay rad, everybody, and watch this video right over here. Bye-bye.